What is going on, Jeff fans? I am Matt O'Leary, and I am back again to talk some New York Jets football with you. And I'm trying to remain calm this evening. It's just that I'm a little bit frustrated today. I was happy and frustrated in my last video at the same time because I was happy with the changes that the Jets were making. For instance, having CJ Uzomah play less and Jeremy Ruckert play more and Izzy Abanikanda finally playing. That makes me happy, but at the same time, I was frustrated that it took so long for the Jets to get to that point. In that video, one of the topics that we covered was Michael Carter getting cut, and Michael Carter was a very popular player here among the fans, but mostly among the team. The team loved Michael Carter, and I get it. He has a great personality. Nobody is ever denying that Michael Carter isn't a nice guy. I said it in that video. I'd love to be friends with Michael Carter. Seems like a great dude. But as a football player, the Jets wanted to go a different direction, and I didn't blame them for that. I have no blame at all for Joe Douglas, for Robert Saleh, for anyone for wanting to go a different direction. Today, let's fast forward about 24 hours. And actually, first, let's give you some context. I apologize. Yesterday, before Michael Carter was cut, the Jets had a players-only meeting. Some were concerned about there being a players-only meeting, that the locker room is gonna fold in. And I don't necessarily think that teams that have players-only meetings, like that's an exact science that if you're having one of those, that things are going really, really bad for the locker room just in general. And Michael Carter getting cut was not a direct result from that players-only meeting. Those are two separate identities, two separate things, not coinciding with each other in any sense of the imagination. But let's get to today, where I'm going to start to get riled a little bit. The New York Jets media and the people who cover the New York Jets are speaking with Izzy Abanikanda, who is set to make his debut this week against the Buffalo Bills up in Buffalo. Big deal for him, big deal for this team because they're making a change. Apparently, someone yelled out in the background, "Shout out Mike Carter," while Izzy Abanikanda was talking. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be a dig at Izzy Abanikanda, but I could understand how Izzy may interpret it that way, as he is like, I'm going to finally get this opportunity, but the reason why I'm getting this opportunity is because they got rid of the guy that everybody liked here. Michael Carter was a very likable, again, Michael Carter was well liked in that room, and Izzy now is coming in to this team and getting his chance. Shout out Mike Carter. And I get it. I saw some of the quote tweets too, and the replies saying like, wow, some of you guys don't have friends if you're bent out of shape over this. They're going to miss their friend. And I understand they're going to miss their friend. Mekhi Becton said morale was low today. But to me, the shout out Mike Carter is just, one, immature, especially when Izzy is talking, because you could just in general be like upset that your friend is no longer on the team. But to say it, number one, in the locker room while the media is there and while Izzy is talking feels very calculated. And you know what it reminds me of? While at the time, people said, some were like, that's not a big deal. And others were like, yeah, this is kind of a big deal. I remember last year when the players, specifically, I remember Braxton Berrios and CJ Uzomah in the Mike effing White shirts as they went to Minnesota at 7-4, and then they would go on to lose 6 straight games to close out their season. And by the end, the locker room was lost. There was no effort in specifically the final 2 to 3 games. You had the Jacksonville loss on prime time on Thursday Night Football, which was an absolute joke performance. You had just a no-show effort in Seattle, and Mike White was obviously, he came back to play in that game, but he was hurt and not playing well at all. He looked really bad in that game, but that just effort from everybody in that one looked rough. And then they sleepwalk through a final game of the year that doesn't matter at all down in Miami. And you go out, not whatever the opposite of swinging is. My fear is that we are trending to see that same thing happen once again. That the locker room is riding high during a win streak, which last year we saw that win streak and it went more than 3 games, but they were again sitting at, what were they before that first New England game? 4-2, right? 1-2. Yeah, maybe it was a 3-game win streak then. Moral of the story, they had this opportunity, and last year it went away because things went bad. The offense was terrible after losing, after Mike White goes down. Zach comes back against Detroit, has a up and down game, and then the last 3 games in particular, it was just a non-existent offense, non-existent effort. And my fear is that we are heading down that path once again, that this locker room is going to get lost for the 2nd season in a row. And I've said this, I don't know how many times on this show, on Jake Gaslin's show earlier this week on Talking Jets, that I would classify myself as a Robert Saleh fan, and I would be surprised if Saleh or Douglas do not return next year because of what happened to this team 4 plays into their season, that they will get a pass. But from a fan perspective, from someone who watches this team, we all do, right? All the Jet fans here watching this video watch this team every week and want to see a fighting chance, right? And it just feels like this is the start of when it starts to go wrong. You lost 2 games in a row. Michael Carter's out the door. And again, I don't have an issue with the decision to move on from Michael Carter. And especially how Robert Saleh explained it, where it's like instead of letting him rot on the bench, we thought give him an opportunity to catch on somewhere else. And this team can't handle it with veterans in there like CJ Uzomah, who was here last year and this year. Rodgers needs to get back in that building, and thankfully he will be back. He said yesterday he was trying to get back by Thanksgiving. That needs to be immediate. They got to figure out a way to get this guy back in the building, and not even just like for his presence on the field and playing, but what are Randall Cobb and CJ Uzomah and Allen Lazard and CJ Mosley and Justin Hardy and anyone who wears a C on their chest? What are you doing? How can that happen? I don't want this to be the case. I don't want the season to go off the rails. I understand they have it's a 6% chance of making the playoffs. Forget that. I don't want to see this turn into another 6-11, 7-10 season. I don't want to see them, in their final 8 games limp to the finish line and give you no-show efforts because the locker room was fractured. That's my fear, and I don't like this quote at all. I hate that this happened. Let me know your thoughts on the subject down below in the comments. I am Matt O'Leary. How'd I do? Did I remain calm enough? I tried to not explode and go nuts. How'd I do? Sound off. Let me know. I'm Matt. I'll catch you next time.